this kind of power, this kind of challenge, this kind of flying, crashing feeling. When you decide to get serious, there's only one place to come, the games of Super Nintendo. No one else creates this kind of experience, because no one else creates these kinds of games. Now you're playing with power, superpower.
Hey everybody, Captain Algebra here. And finally, years in the making, I'm here with my top 10 SNES games. So right after I did my top 10 NES list, I wanted to do Super Nintendo because Super Nintendo is the greatest console of all time. No argument necessary. We all know it's true. Okay? Super Nintendo is fantastic. So I want to create the list of my top 10 games of all time. Now, you know, with the NES one, there are a lot of games that would not be on other people's top 10 lists. Super Nintendo is going to be a little bit more par for the course for sure, but there's definitely going to be some heavy hitters that are missing that I'm sure a bunch of you are going to think about why are they not on my list. But just remember, this is my list. This includes a lot of nostalgia of growing up with it, and there are some games I never grew up with and didn't play until adulthood. And there's also some styles of games that I'm just not into, like RPGs. So if you don't see any RPGs on list, that's why. But let's get right to it. Here are my top 10 SNES games of all time.
Just listening to that title screen music gets me pumped to play this game all over again. The only reason this is so low on the list is that damn 4th level when you're in the spaceship. That stage is always giving me in trouble. But other than that, this game is amazing. It's a blend of two great franchises, Battletoads and Double Dragon, and this might be better than any of the individual games in each of those series. My favorite part has always been attacking the enemies in Stage 2 with these sticks. The Double Dragons pogo stick them through the floor, while the Battletoads get a little batting practice in. I've always laughed my ass off at that. It's so damn funny. This game looks great, sounds great, and plays great, and has always been a favorite of mine. The Turbo Tunnel even makes an appearance, although it is a lot easier to manage this time around. Zombies, chainsaw men, aliens, gigantic toddlers, and cheerleaders. What's not to love? I was very fortunate to grow up with this game and played it all the time. The game's an easy pick up and play game, but it also has quite a few levels to keep you coming back for more. There are plenty of weapons to attack with, including your water gun, silverware and dishes, soda cans, decoy clowns, bazookas, tomatoes, you name it, you can pretty much use it in this game. It was nice that they used a password system, but since it doesn't save all your items you had, it is almost useless. The later stages get pretty tough, so starting with the default items can be rough. The game also offers a great co-op option for anyone who likes sitting down with their friends and squirting some zombies with water guns. There was no doubt in my mind, Zombies Ate My Neighbors was going to be on my top 10 list. Super Castlevania IV was the first Castlevania game I ever really put a lot of time into, and it's the first one I actually beat, so it definitely had to make my list. The ability to whip in 8 directions was a huge improvement on the other games in the series. There are some fantastic boss fights in the game, and I really like the fight with Dracula. As usual, the music is excellent, and this definitely has my favorite version of Bloody Tears in all the Castlevania games. I've played the 3 NES games, Bloodlines, Dracula X, and Symphony of the Night, and this continues to be my favorite game in the franchise. As much as I despise Ghosts and Goblins on the NES, I absolutely love Super Ghouls and Ghosts. The game is pretty tough at first, but once you put a little time into it, it really isn't too bad, other than the second to last boss fight on the second loop. Having to use the Goddess Bracelet really makes that a tough fight. Other than that, the game is amazing. It looks fantastic, has an excellent soundtrack, and includes one of my favorite weapons in the series, the bow and arrow. The bow and arrow alone is great for shooting in multiple directions, but once you get the green and gold armor, the homing ability really helps out. Sure, it'll circle around enemies sometimes and kind of screw you over, but for the most part, it's pretty great. Finding the hidden chests and learning the patterns of what pops out is a must, and once you do, you will love this game. This is easily the best game in the franchise, and this is a game I find myself constantly going back to when I have my SNES hooked up. Return of the Jedi is objectively the better game, but I always found myself playing this more than the other two games in the series. Being a huge Star Wars fan, I knew I'd like this game no matter what, but the gameplay and soundtrack kept me coming back for more. Being able to blast away at stormtroopers, Jawas, and Womprats with a variety of weapons never gets old. The game is definitely pretty tough, with some of the boss fights seeming to rely entirely on RNG. I still can't help myself from loving this game. If you're a Star Wars fan, this is a must play. If you had asked me a couple years ago what my favorite Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game was, this would easily have been the answer. Hyperstone Heist has since taken that spot, but it doesn't prevent Turtles in Time from being one of my favorite games on the Super Nintendo. A killer soundtrack, fast-paced action, and the ability to throw enemies at the screen makes this worthy of anyone's top 10. I still remember being blown away the first time I threw an enemy at the screen, and then using it in the boss fight of Stage 4 with Shredder was just icing on the cake. The time travel element is great, and having Slash, my favorite villain from TMNT, just adds to the many reasons I love this game. This is one I did not grow up with, but my buddy across the street had it, and we spent hours playing through this game over and over again. One of the best beat-em-ups of all time. There was never any doubt that this would make my top 10 list. You all know how much I love Super C on the NES. Well, Contra III is easily my second favorite Contra game. Huge explosions, giant bosses, and being able to hold two weapons at once really makes this game stand out. As with most Contra games, this one can be quite tough at first, but once you figure out your favorite weapons and memorize the locations of enemies, this game becomes very doable. It must be beaten on hard to get the true ending, and I highly suggest anyone playing this game take the time to do so. The enemies and bullets move faster, upping the ante, but fighting the real final boss after grinding your way through the game feels so damn good. I love all the callbacks to other Contra games, with so many of the bosses showing up from previous games in the series. If you love Contra, this is a must-play. Entering the top 3 of the list, Donkey Kong Country had to make an appearance. One of the most impressive platformers of all time, everyone was blown away by how this game looked when it came out. The pre-rendered graphics really made this game stand out against the competition. Having a slower, strong character in Donkey Kong matched with a faster, weaker character in Diddy also made traversing the levels more interesting, as you could switch on the fly to choose the character that you liked best or best fit the situation. And I absolutely loved the animal buddies, even if a Winky wasn't used nearly enough. There are plenty of secret areas and bananas and one-ups galore. This is often considered a pretty tough game, but I never thought it was that bad. And now for the music. Donkey Kong Country might be my favorite Super Nintendo soundtrack of all time. Every level's OST captures the atmosphere perfectly, whether you're in the jungle, in the caves, and of course, one of the most iconic stage themes of all time, in the water with aquatic ambience. This is a damn near perfect game, but there are still two games that I like better. Those of you that know me know that I am not a fan of turn-based RPGs, but I absolutely love Super Mario RPG. One of my buddies on the bus back in elementary school raved about this game, so he let me try it out, even though I had no idea what an RPG was. At first, I was completely turned off when the first enemy I tried to jump on brought me into a battle where I had no idea what I was doing. But eventually, I got the hang of it. I still remember getting stuck in the first fight with Croco and having no idea what to do, but I got some advice from my buddy and then never looked back. I eventually got the game for my birthday and have been hooked on it ever since. Even though I don't like RPGs, this one always stuck with me because I already knew the characters and the game is very easy to learn. This might be considered a beginner's RPG, but that didn't turn me away at all. I love the use of timed hits to give more damage and to prevent yourself from taking more damage, and I really wish more RPGs would use this technique. This game also introduces one of my favorite Mario characters of all time, Geno. He is such a cool character and one of the strongest in the game, but unfortunately hasn't really made another appearance in a Mario game yet. I would love to get a true sequel to this game someday, but I really don't see it happening. I try and go back and replay this game at least once a year because it never gets old. This is another Super Nintendo game that is pretty much perfect in every way, but it still isn't quite enough to be my number one game. Before I reveal that, let's look at some honorable mentions. For those of you that have followed my channel for a while, this should come as no surprise. I have always said that Donkey Kong Country 2 was my favorite Super Nintendo game of all time. Donkey Kong Country is amazing, but Donkey Kong Country 2 improved on that game in almost every way. The graphics and stage design are refined, there are new animal buddies, and a lost world to explore if you want the real ending. I also love the addition of Dixie, as her hairspin is probably the best move in all the DKC games. Even though I like that Diddy is faster, I find myself usually playing as Dixie for this reason. And I love that you can transform into the Anna Buddies in some of the levels, which adds a new wrinkle to the gameplay. The bosses in the game are also more interesting and require more technique than in Donkey Kong Country. Finally, the only thing that Donkey Kong Country does better, in my opinion, is the soundtrack. With that said, this game's OST is no slouch either. With all the improvements this game made over the first game, it was easy to take this game over it. This was the game that spent more time than any others in my Super Nintendo growing up. I used to play this game so often that I knew of every bonus barrel and DK coin in the game, and found myself getting everything in the game every time I played it. This has been my favorite Super Nintendo game since it came out in 1995, and I see no reason to change that 26 years later.
So there you go. My top 10 SNES games of all time. Pretty solid list if I do say so myself. But in the comments below, let me know what's your top 10, or of course, you can do a video response. That's always fun to do as well. I know games like Chrono Trigger are missing, Super Mario World, Link to the Past, some heavy hitters that, almost everyone would probably put on their top 10 list. Unfortunately, I don't like RPGs, so that's why Chrono Trigger's out. Link to the Past, I didn't play that until after I went through a lot of the 3D games, and I'm more partial to the 3D Zelda games than the 2D Zelda games. It's a great game. It just didn't crack my top 10. And as for Super Mario World, I love it, but for some reason, I just don't really go back to it anymore. I just kind of got bored with it. I beat it so many times as a kid that I just don't want to go back to it anymore. Unlike something like Super Mario Bros. 3 on the NES, I could play that all day, every day, because I love it so much. So, great games, it just didn't make my list. Thanks for watching, everybody. Until next time, this is Captain Algebra, signing off.